The Hindu Harvest Festival was this week, giving some of us a long holiday and the Hindus in Sri Lanka the chance to thank Surya, the sun, and the forces of nature for a prosperous harvest. Dating back to the 9th century, Pongal celebrations often feature kolam masterpieces and that yum Pongal dish of rice, milk and cane sugar. So happy Thai Pongal and welcome to Kaleidoscope, where we're positive, daring, different. Today on the show, we're talking tax and tin, meeting an award-winning author and questioning the concept of home. A massive thank you to our partners for their support always. Srilanka Live CDB, The Daily Morning, Park Street Gourmet, Park Street Wines and Zip Zip. Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. And if you like our show, don't forget to subscribe and follow for weekly updates.
CDB Hybrid Leasing. Enjoy exclusive interest rate and much more for hybrids, plug-in hybrids and EV vehicles.
Let's have a look at the week that was on CDB Snapshot. Sri Lanka's foreign reserves topped over $4 billion compared to being at rock bottom 2 years ago. The IMF applauds Sri Lanka's significant progress in implementing economic reforms. Sri Lanka's air quality plummets in major districts, with Colombo soaring to an unhealthy 105. The city of St. Paul in Minnesota makes history by swearing in its all-woman city council. A vicious storm unearths a 112-year-old shipwreck in Maine. And Elton John joins the elite EGOT club, the Emmy, Grammy, Oscar and Tony Awards, after winning an Emmy for his concert special.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
Welcome to Srilanka Life News Capsule. The recent announcement of the taxpayer identification number, the TIN, being mandatory for all individuals above the age of 18 in Sri Lanka has sent the country into a frenzy. As many race to the online platform to register, the Inland Revenue Department has stated that as at 4th January, nearly 1 million individuals have registered with the TIN. In 2022, this number was only at a little over 200,000. A remarkable surge indeed. But what does it mean to get a TIN? To set the record straight, I met with the Principal of Tax and Regulatory Division of KPMG Sri Lanka, Suresh R.I. Pereira. Suresh, there is so much confusion about registering for a TIN. People don't know what it entails. Do they really need to file returns? Does it mean that you will be paying tax on income that you don't even have? Just can you give us a little bit of explanation why there is so much confusion?
In short, obtaining a TIN in relation to people who are above 18 years does not mean that they have to file tax returns. It does not mean that they have to pay income taxes. According to the system, when you obtain a TIN, there will be a PIN given. PIN is a personal identification number. TIN means taxpayer identification number. So once the PIN is given, you can visit the portal in the Ramesh system, the software system, and do whatever you want. So unless you go and register, unless you go and activate what is called a tax type registration for a particular tax type, just obtaining the TIN does not mean that you have to pay taxes. You are given a number only.
Do you think this will actually expand the tax net, or is it just something that's being done to appease the IMF?
IMF has pointed out that Sri Lankan tax collection is low, tax to GDP is low, which is correct. So there has to be tax collection has to increase. So, but from where to collect the taxes, etc., is up to the policymakers of Sri Lanka. Whether by getting everyone above 18 years to get a TIN, whether that will increase the income tax revenue. But at the same time, I have a feeling compared to the cost-benefit analysis, it will be a marginal increase that we will see.
So this would be ideal for a digitally savvy population, but ours is not, for the most part.
In the mercantile sector, people who have used computers here and there, okay, they may be, to a certain extent, they may be able to handle this process, but at the same time, majority of the Sri Lankans do not have access, or even basically, even if they have access, how to do this thing is a very complicated process.
Now, how will the Inland Revenue Department cope with this influx?
The numbers that they have are not sufficient even to administer the current workload that they have. So, if you look at during the last 10 years, or even they have the full card at the Inland Revenue Department is something between 2,000 to 3,000. So, out of that also only about 800 are basically involved in handling files. So, actually they seems to be overloaded with the work. So, here what happens is there will be information coming, and of course that will result in overload of information, and with the existing staff, whether meaningful action could be taken, left to be seen.
So let's take a look at our stock, oil and gold markets. At the Colombo Stock Exchange, persistent foreign selling led to the oil share price index dropping by a further 2% this week. Oil prices began moving down to $77 per barrel levels as lower than expected economic growth in China, the world's second largest crude user, raised concerns about future demand. Gold prices remained steady at over $2,000 per ounce as investors continued to invest in the metal for safe haven reasons. There was a royal wedding over the weekend. Prince Abdul Mateen of Brunei got married in a 10-day celebration. Now, that's what we call a big, big wedding. Polar bears have completely taken over Kaleidoscope Island in Russia, making dilapidated cottages and houses their homes. With the Gold Literary Festival just a week away, today on Let's Talk, we have a powerhouse of creativity who will be at the Gold Literary Festival, Amanti Harris. Her novella, Lantern Evening, won her the Gatehouse Press New Fictions Prize. Her short stories have been broadcast and featured in 2020's Best British Short Stories collection. And her most recent short story, Krinkum Crankum, was also broadcast in 2023. She also published Beautiful Place in 2019. She's not just a prolific writer. Amanti, who makes her home in Colombo, England and Spain, has studied chemistry, law and fine arts. She's also a solicitor, a book editor and an artist. We met up with her virtually from her home in Spain for a tete-a-tete to find out what makes this award-winning author tick. Welcome, Amanti. From chemistry to law to art, how do you grapple with all this diverse knowledge and bring it together in your writing pursuits?
I think really writing art and literature have always been at the forefront. So to some extent, I don't bring them all together. The studies were kind of a phase, I suppose, of my education. So I don't really refer to it, although I'm sure it influences me in the way that I approach my work and the way I organize my projects. But I think on the whole, I don't really see any kind of classification. I just go straight to what I'm working on, and usually it's something to do with art or writing.
Tell me about Lantern Evening and Beautiful Place.
A Beautiful Place is my novel set on the southern coast of Sri Lanka in a tiny imaginary village by the sea. And that I was working on for years. And I started it when I went to art college quite late, in my 30s. I went to art college and it was so inspiring and exciting. I started to think a lot about my childhood and the home I grew up in Colombo, and tried to merge all that with holidays to the south. And so I started to invent a lot of like a world, and this villa came out of it. And so Lantern Evening came kind of at a later stage, but it won the prize. And then as a result of that, I had interest in the novel. So then the novel came out.
Krinkum Crankum, the title is intriguing. What's the buzz on this one?
So Krinkum Crankum is an ancient folk tale. I think it's from Finland. I first came across it on a storytelling workshop, my first ever storytelling workshop that I went on to learn to tell stories to children. And it was a very formative experience for me, because I realized how important storytelling was in terms of the way you connect your own story to these strange little abstract tales with kind of archetypal imagery. So I then started this long journey of exploring folk tales and fairy tales and myths. And so I was asked by some producers to write a story about storytelling for Radio 4, BBC Radio 4. And I could have drawn on the tale directly, but I actually wanted to write about what it was like to discover a connection to a story. So I used the story of Crinkum Crankum as the basis for my own story, which is also called Crinkum Crankum as a result. And it's still available to listen to. So it's available on the BBC website. And actually the phrase Crinkum Crankum is a very old word. It means kind of lots of twists and turns and something very kind of ornate and maybe gnarled and twisted. So that's how it's used in the story.
From your published works, which of them do you find that you go back to creatively? Which of them actually is your favorite?
I've just finished the draft of my next novel, and I think I kind of returned quite firmly to Lantern Evening and the way I structured that, because I think that's probably the way I'm going to work for a little while, with using fragments of flashbacks and memories and different storylines kind of weaving into each other.
Now, you write art, you make art. Which methods of artistic expression do you favor? Is one better than the other when you look at it?
I kind of need both. That's one of the biggest realizations I had, that I needed to do both. And maybe at different levels. So if I'm like trying to put something forward for an exhibition, or then the art takes over and the writing kind of simmers away. But I think I work out ideas for one in the other. So I've just finished doing a little like a painting and drawing online class, and somewhere in the course of that I ended up doing a drawing that I thought might lead to a story that I'll explore in words. More or less, I have both on the go at some time.
Thank you, Amanti. More power to all you do with your pen and brush. Looking around the world, there are more displaced people than ever before. Primarily, maybe due to wars, but also due to various other reasons. So what exactly is home for people when you look at the larger scheme of things for a human being? On Life in 60 today, I'm at the Saskia Fernando Gallery, viewing Firi Rahman's Swept Away Like Leaves, a verse taken from Aga Shahid Ali's poem, A Country Without a Post Office, speaking of loss and longing for places that exist in memory only. Firi, so looking at this collection, what exactly is home to you?
So for me, the question is always with me. So that's what this exhibition is all about, that. Because my idea is like kind of looking for a home and where I belong. So the exhibition just talks about like everything about how it's like to be a home and what it's home for me actually. So initially when I started, it's like a very rough sketch. So that's how it usually happens. But over the time, I kind of envision what is the outcome it's going to be. But some of the work is going to be like more like I did it in sketchbook. So I didn't really think about what is going to outcome. Some of the sketches I didn't even want to exhibit because it was just rough sketches. So maybe most of the work, I feel like it's still work in progress, but this would evolve.
Put yourself in the shoes of migrants and refugees, which is what Firi has done, taking his own experiences and what he sees around him as inspiration.
So through this exhibition, I'm just always kind of like talking about like how we always not like belong to some place. We always constantly moving and migrating. So even my roots and everything that even where I'm living now, we always constantly moving and in order to kind of find a home. So that's the whole concept of it. I think everybody sort of related to this thing, the artwork, and also like when I see these empty cages, it doesn't only talk about the loss, but it's also about people who migrated, people who, like the group of friends who just one of them is like gone somewhere else. So it's always like they kind of feel like the group of someone is like missing.
So head on over to the Saskia Fernando Gallery this weekend for some thoughts to ponder on. We'll see you next week.